It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis and Willie Witten.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. I'm Pete Francis, joined by Willie Witten. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to get all the latest videos. Willie, we're going to kick things off this week talking about Greta Van Fleet. They've got a new album that just came out. In fact, you reviewed the album, The Battle at Garden's Gate. Willie, your thoughts?
My thoughts, I thought it was excellent. In a word, excellent. And I know this will rile up a lot of people, but I think that they really put all of it out there. They went after a huge epic type sound. And by and large, they succeeded. I know that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say that they're still clinging to that rock of the 70s, the different era. People are going to say, hey, that's a little like Zepp. That's a little like Rush with the voice. That's a little like, you can fill in the blank. But I think on a bigger level, what they've done is they're taking chances. The sound itself is excellent. When people hear this album, I think that one of the things that's going to floor them is how lush and heavy the sound is, how big the soundscape is. It sounds really huge. So when you get to certain songs like Age of Machine and you get these giant choruses where you have Jake soloing over things and it sounds like there's 200 people singing in the background, it's got a bit of that epic feel. I think their maturity really is starting to show. I know some people will disagree with this too. They're taking their time. They're trying different things. And I think that by and large, Pete, I think it really works. The biggest thing, and then I'm going to ask your feelings, but I'll leave you with this. In a world where you have epic pop, rap, country videos, who really is going after the big grandeur, the big, huge stage in the rock and blues world? And for those who want to take them down a peg, I would say that these four boys are sort of fighting for your music. They're the ones who are trying to keep this relevant and big in a very competitive musical landscape, Pete. That's what I'd say. What do you think about the album?
Kind of like what you said, Willie. I think the production on this album sounds huge. And you could definitely describe a lot of the tracks as epic in terms of just kind of the sounds that they come up with and just kind of, like you said, just the hugeness of this album and the tracks. It just really does have that sort of epic kind of feeling to it. And I think from start to finish, the album is really solid. There's not really any bad tracks on there or anything where I was like, man, what are they doing? You know, it's a good album. I think there's legitimate stuff on here. And yeah, sometimes they do sound like Zeppelin, but who cares, really? I mean, Let me ask you this, Willie. Okay, because no one ever knocks Rival Sons for sounding like they're a band out of the 70s.
Right.
You know, if Greta Van Fleet, if these guys weren't so young, say they were 10, 15 years older, would they be getting all the criticism that they get for sounding like Led Zeppelin or that they're out of the 1970s? I don't think they would.
Pete, I don't think they would either. I think that people have a bit of a hard time with their age. And I think that there are some people that think that they haven't put in their time and haven't earned it. But let's face it, I think you earn it when you write stuff that is memorable, that sounds great, that is pleasing to listen to. To me, this album was a joy to listen to. Just for the sound, I'd put it on my headphones and like there were parts where I'd go back and I was watching and I'd just rewind and rewind. There were parts where I just keep rewinding to hear like these 45 seconds because they just sounded so great. I think they take a lot of heat and I get where the heat is coming from. I understand. And I think that this really is their second full-length album. Maybe is there a fear that they're sort of a one-trick pony and that this is going to be the gear that they stay in for their entire career? It's possible, but let's be honest. There's so much of a future ahead of them. I think people want to write them off before they even get started. Think about how many people in this genre are playing music into their 40s, 50s, 60s. I think there's a long road ahead of these guys, and I think it looks really bright. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Willie, because take a band like Black Country Communion, which was the super group with Joe Bonamassa, Glenn Hughes, Jason
Yep.
Bonham, Derek Sherinian. Those guys were kind of celebrated for doing the classic rock, Zeppelin style rock. And
Uh-huh.
then you have a band like Greta Van Fleet, and they're ridiculed for it. And there is kind of a double standard there with rock. And you have a lot of those people that are like, oh man, Greta Van Fleet, they're Zeppelin clones. You know, they're just terrible. But those are the same people complaining that there's no good rock music today. And why isn't rock in the mainstream? And why isn't rock on the radio? But
Right.
then you got
The
Greta
heat
Van
above.
Fleet. They come along, they're bringing in a bunch of new fans. And guess what? People are like, oh, we don't like them. I mean,
Right.
what's the problem? They're writing original songs.
Yep. Well, I think that, I don't know. I think there's a bit of you haven't put in your dues. But so I hear the Greta Van Fleet sound, that big open arena, just hugeness to it. And then there's another band that's coming down the pipe. It's a band with one of the names that I think is one of the best band names in a long time, because rock and roll at its best is Dirty Honey. Dirty Honey comes from a different sort of branch on the rock and roll tree. If Greta Van Fleet is huge and open and vast, Dirty Honey reminds me a little bit more of that sort of Guns N' Roses style where it's intimate, it's a bar room, and it is in your face. They've got an album coming out. Pete, have you had a chance to listen to some of it?
Yeah, it's very good, Willie. And let me ask you this. Do you think, because I know you've heard it as well, do you think Dirty Honey is the next big thing in rock?
I think they certainly could be. I don't think this album is going to go down as an epic, one of the all-time greats, but it's very, very good. There's a few tracks on there. Once again, the repeat factor, as I like to call it, where I listen to it 5, 6, 7 times in a row. I think they could be. I think what they get back into is solid riffs. They're not as grandiose as a Greta Van Fleet. So people who have a hard time with the prog rock, this sort of too much expanse, too much theater, you won't find that with Dirty Honey. These guys go right to the point. I think a lot of people who loved the punchy hard rock aspect of 70s and the gems out of the 80s are going to love these guys. I don't know if they're going to be the next big thing, but they certainly could be because they write good songs. They're great musicians. And I think the attitude is there. So I see these guys sticking around too. I can't wait for people to hear this album. It's coming out this upcoming Friday.
Yeah,
right,
on
Pete?
Friday. And they had put out a single for this recently, California Dreaming, which if you've seen the music video is super cool. It's really, really well done. And they've put out a couple singles the past couple years, and they started putting out singles in 2019. And then this album was kind of delayed because of the pandemic. So this is finally now their debut that's going to get out there. 8 tracks on the album, which honestly, kind of listening to the album from start to finish, I think they really kind of hit it on the money right there with the 8 tracks.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good. And yeah, they've got a lot of different kind of interesting influences, Willie. I know you had mentioned like AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, Audio Slave, a lot of those sort of influences in there. So yeah, there's definitely some good stuff on this album. And really, you look at rock music and people saying, oh, rock music is dead. Well, guess what? There's a lot of good rock bands right now that are putting out pretty good albums.
Well, I think also you mentioned California Dreaming. Without giving too much away, I've gotten the advance, so I've gotten to hear the entire album. 8 songs. If I had to rank the songs, California Dreaming, as good as it is, that's not even in the top half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think that people are going to be surprised. I think there's a nice 1-2 punch of songs in the middle. I love their album Closer. I think that anyone who gets the chance to at least give them a listen. Once again, like Greta Van Fleet, it's not for everyone. None of the stuff that we come out here, do we say everyone's going to think it's the best ever. But if you like punchy rock and roll, if you like in your face, guys that maybe you can say one day, oh, I saw them playing in a bar 3 years ago, and now they're playing to 20,000 people. These Dirty Honey could be that band.
And here's the other thing, Willie. With Greta Van Fleet getting so much mainstream attention and really getting out there, that helps bands like Dirty Honey. That helps bands like Rival Sons. So the more of these bands that we get out there, everyone's going to benefit from that. So there's nothing wrong with Greta Van Fleet being successful. That's going to help out so many other bands, and that's a good thing.
And talking about that success and getting the word out, someone who I see a lot these days getting accolades left, right, and center, as she should, is Joanna Connor. She's going to be featured on the upcoming release of the Blues Rock Review sampler album.
Yes, the Blues Rock Review album sampler, volume 12. And it's been a while since we released one. We didn't release one last year because of, 2020, but it's back this year, and we're pretty excited about this lineup, Willie.
Joanna Connor aside, I thought, hey, we could just release 4801 South Indiana and just pretend that was the sampler and people would be blown away. But our audience is a little too smart for that. They would have caught on. There's some great tracks on there. I believe there's a track, the Ellis Mano Band. Man, that song is really great. The chorus is very wonderful and it hits you. It's a great, catchy chorus that you can sing along to.
Keep It Simple is the name of the track.
And it reminds me a bit, if I can make a comparison here, I'd compare it to a bit of Dire Straits. It's a little bit, his playing is Knopfler-esque, if that's a word. It is now, it's a word.
You just made it a word, so go ahead.
I made it a word. His playing is Knopfler-esque. I think that's one of the tracks that people are really going to like. Pete, do you have a couple on there that you really think?
So I'm going to go over this because I've got all the tracks listed here in front of me. Okay. So we've got Joanna Connor, Destination. So that leads off the album. Then at this number 2, we've got When Rivers Meet, Walking on the Wire. When Rivers Meet out of the UK, they had a really big 2020. That was kind of their coming out party. And they also made Blues Rock Review's top 20 albums of 2020. Yes. So great to have them on the album. Ariel, Peace of Mind, which is an awesome track. If you've seen the music video, that's out already. The Damn Truth, This Is Who We Are Now. This is an awesome band. We were talking about rock bands earlier. They're out of Canada. They've actually been around for a little while, but this is kind of them coming onto our radar. And this is a killer track. This band is really good. Davey Knowles, Come Home. That's from Roll Away Revisited. Davey Knowles has been doing a lot of cool stuff for the past decade.
Yep.
And then Ellis Mano Band, as you mentioned. Meg Williams, Fuel for My Fire, which she just put out a music video for that, which is pretty cool. John Strahl Band, Hey Yeah, All Right. We got Troy Redfern, Scorpio. Kurt Allen Band, Graveyard Blues. And Chase Walker Band, Your Books. I'm
very excited for the Scorpio because I've been trying to, they keep teasing me about this. They haven't released it. I love some of Redfern's music, some of the heaviness sometimes when he gets into some of these covers and just the intensity that he brings. He's very well steeped in the blues tradition. He really plays great guitar. He keeps it simple, but it's memorable. That's not out yet. So I think for a lot of people on the sampler, that might be their first look at that song. That's one of the ones I'm eagerly anticipating. Pete, do you have any that you think are going to blow people's mind or that they're not ready for because they've never heard of them before?
Well, I think people are just going to discover a lot of new artists that they weren't maybe familiar with before. And that's really kind of been sort of a trademark of these album samplers over the years. Is it really is a great opportunity to discover some awesome new music you may not necessarily have heard of before. We definitely get some names on here that people have heard of, but we also get a lot of up and comers, great talents that maybe aren't quite on everyone's radar yet. So, that's something that's always something great to look forward to with these album samplers. And yeah, this is the 12th one. And, we get artists from all over the globe. And yeah, it's really awesome. It comes out on Friday. So definitely check this out, bluesrockreview.com, and it's a free download. You can't beat that, Willie.
Can't beat free, especially when the quality's high. This is one of those rare examples where you get something better than what you pay for because you're getting something great and you're not paying a dime. So I think we can leave it at that. Go ahead, take a listen to the album. Once again, this is how you find the gems. This is what turns you on to the person that you wish you had been listening to for the past 5 years. Yeah, so Friday, April 23rd, free download, bluesrockreview.com, the Blues Rock Review album sampler, volume 12. All right, Willie, that's it for this week. What do you guys think of the topics this week? What do you think about Greta Van Fleet's new album? Let us know down in the comments section below. What do you think about Dirty Honey? You like them? Great band. Do you think they're the next big thing in rock? And let us know what you think about the upcoming Blues Rock Review album sampler. Remember, free download Friday, April 23rd. On bluesrockreview.com. All right, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Blues Rock Show. For Willie Witten, I'm Pete Francis. We'll see you next time.